Hey everybody, Dr. Nick here on Feel Good Friday. Today we're going to talk about 2 exercises for your shoulder that you may be doing that could be harming your shoulder. And then we're going to show you 2 ways to change it up to make it safer. First is the lateral raise. When you raise your arm out to the side, you may have heard that if you tip your arm forward like you're pouring out a pitcher of water, it isolates your middle delt more. I'm going to tell you why that's a bad thing to do. Let's check it out on stand. Your supraspinatus muscle is one of your rotator cuff muscles, sits right on top of your shoulder blade here. And its tendon runs through this tight space here and attaches to your arm bone. Now when you pour that pitcher of water out, what you're doing is you're internally rotating that shoulder. So when you internally rotate, watch what happens to this tendon. You see how it's getting scraped? There's a nice big bump right on your humerus bone, and when you internally rotate, you're jamming that bump right into the supraspinatus tendon. As that happens, if you can imagine holding a taut rope and scraping it in between 2 rocks, what's going to happen? It's going to fray, it's going to fray, it's going to fray. Eventually that rope is going to break, and that's called a rotator cuff tear. Also, the upright row. Very similar. When you perform an upright row, look at your arms, right? They're in that internally rotated position, and you're raising your arms up against resistance. That puts this tendon at risk for getting scraped again, right? So you're internally rotating that shoulder and you're elevating it, and you're going to be pinching that tendon in between these 2 bones. That's called impingement, and that can lead, like I said, to a rotator cuff tear. Let's head to the gym, and I'm going to show you 2 great ways to change up these exercises and make them work for you. So here we are in the gym. I'm going to show you a modification to the lateral raise and then a great alternative to the upright row. First, let's talk lateral raise. You have 3 heads of your deltoid, the front, the middle, and the rear. Whichever head is facing directly opposite the force of gravity is the head that you're going to isolate. So, if I were to externally rotate my shoulder and raise my arm up, my front deltoid is facing straight up. So that's completely opposite the force of gravity and the weight. So my front delt is going to get the most of the work. If I bend over and perform a bent over lateral raise like this, my rear delt is completely opposite the force of gravity. So my rear delt is going to be getting the work. So when we do a lateral raise and we want to isolate the middle delt, if we rotate inward, what that does is puts our middle deltoid right opposite the force of gravity. But I just showed you why that's bad on the skeleton. So, how are we going to do this move safer and still isolate that middle deltoid? We're going to have a little bit of a lean forward, and then we're going to raise up, and we're even going to externally rotate a little bit. So we're going to lean forward, raise up, externally rotate a little bit, and back down. So you can see that little bit of a lean forward allows that middle deltoid to be right opposite that force of gravity, and we're even getting external rotation as opposed to internal rotation, which we know internal rotation is a bad thing. Next, we're going to show you the alternative to the upright row. Why do we do the upright row? The upright row is meant to work your shoulders and your traps. Here's a lot better way to do it, and it's called the face pull. You're going to come over to a pulley station, use a rope or any kind of attachment you could find. We're going to pull back with our shoulder blades, squeeze our shoulder blades, come up, right to our face, squeeze, and back down. Shoulder blades back first, pull up, squeeze, and back down. Okay, so right from behind it's going to look like this. Squeeze your shoulder blades, pull back, squeeze, and forward. Shoulder blades, up, and back down. 2 things you want to remember with this exercise. When you pull back, you don't want your head to drift forward, and you don't want your back to arch, right? You don't want this to happen. So we're getting 2 things. We're getting scapular retraction and external rotation, which a lot of times we're limited in and very weak in. because throughout our day, we don't typically do this motion. Typically, we do this motion. We're internally rotated and our shoulders are forward. So this exercise not only is going to hit your traps, your shoulders, it's also going to help correct any postural deficits. Guys, put these in your routine as soon as possible. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.